Welcome to this episode of the Formula Podcast. It's me again, your friendly neighborhood host, Trevor Carlson, back again to share my experiences, experiments, and conversations around designing a meaningful life, or what designing a meaningful life means for me. Hopefully you can listen and maybe learn a few things for yourself. So around Christmas time of 2018, I was doing some browsing, trying to find some new podcasts, and I stumbled on the Dating Kinda Sucks podcast. And ever since then, I've been absolutely hooked. Sarah and Adam are the hosts, and they have these amazing, real, in-depth conversations where they cover their own personal dating lives, and then they even share advice for other people. For me personally, there were some things that I found from listening that I could definitely improve on in my own dating life, but then I also felt validated from some of the things too, where just by being yourself and putting yourself out there can be some of the best advice you could receive. So instead of me rambling on any further, let's hear a quick word from our sponsors, and then we're going to hear from Adam and Sarah. All right. Let's give a quick shout out to our first sponsor of this week's episode, Lady Boss. Lady Boss is a women's health company that provides workout plans, supplements, all kinds of stuff to help women really live more healthy, at least physically better lives. And it was founded by Kaylin Poulin. Hopefully she'll be a guest of the show here sometime soon. Head on over to theformulapodcast.com and click on the sponsored products page if Lady Boss products sound like something that would be interesting for you. Our next sponsor is Liquid Web. Now, if you're looking to launch some type of e-commerce store, drop shipping, whatever it is, maybe you've listened to the episodes with Adrian, Ketsu, or all three of us where we're talking about our different e-commerce ventures that we've gotten into. Liquid Web has these pre-made solutions just for you guys. So they were also nice enough to hook up Formula Podcast listeners with 33% off all their products. So if you type in Formula 33 on the checkout page, you're going to get 33% off whatever you decide to pick up over at liquidweb.com. Now, let's get on to the show.
Hey, I'm Sarah from Dating Kinda Sucks, the serial dater, if you will. And I'm joined with Adam, my co-host.
Yeah, I'm Adam Avitable. I'm the old man and comedian who just gives Sarah a lot of crap about everything she does with her daily life and rants a lot about dating. And we started the podcast back about a year and a half ago now. I think we've done 70-something episodes, and we do it every week. It has. Yeah. It really has, yeah. We talk about dating, relationships, sex, and kind of everything in between, and try to help people learn how to maybe make the most out of their relationship with anybody, not even just a dating relationship, but any type of relationship.
Yeah, it kind of all started. We met at a blogging conference. I was blogging about my own dating life a couple years ago, and then we connected through Twitter, and then we just had a good back and forth conversation through like Instagram DMs, and we're like, do you want to do a podcast? Yeah, sure, let's do a podcast. So we've been very vulnerable. We've talked about our own personal dating lives. We've given advice. We've helped a lot of people feel comfortable in this new dating arena, if you will, and we're having fun doing it.
Yeah, and I absolutely love how you guys really go in depth with what you share, because, from somebody who's in the dating world, sometimes you don't have someone you can run these things by where you're like, oh, hey, man, what about, you think that's normal? So hearing you guys talk about it, really from a listener perspective, it's really helpful because you're like, oh, okay, I can see why maybe that didn't go over so well. Or I can see why, maybe that relationship didn't work out because of XYZ.
Yeah, instead of like me going to my girlfriends about all my dating problems now, I just go to Adam. I'm like, well, you're a guy, so tell me, what do you think about this or that? So we try to be that for our listeners too, which is fun.
It's been interesting when we've heard from listeners later on, someone who said like, I didn't realize I was in a bad relationship until this episode. And then it started making me really assess whether or not I was happy. And like, we've had people who have gotten kind of free of a bad relationship because they listened, which I think is really crazy too.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool thing that you can have that impact on other people when they listen.
The power.
The power of a dating podcast. What have you guys learned in your own dating lives from doing this show? Because I imagine that there's probably been some insights or some things that have popped up along the way.
From doing the show, I think I'm a lot more confident with who I am as a person in the dating world now. I think beforehand, when I first looked at dating apps and getting on and creating a profile, it was all like, oh, am I good enough? Oh, will somebody actually like me? And now it's more of, this is who I am. If take it or leave it. If you don't like it, I'm fine. I'm comfortable with myself. So it's been through starting the podcast and talking more openly about dating, it's actually helped me a lot too. And I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure Adam feels the same way. It's kind of therapy, digesting what we're going through in our own dating lives and then talking about topics that we're still going through as well.
I've always been the ad hoc therapist for all of my friends when it comes to dating and relationships anyways, especially over the last few years as I've kind of figured out myself. And so it's been nice to actually have someone else that we bounce ideas off of. And it's made me understand the woman's perspective, which I've really gone out of my way to try to understand, what women have to go through in the dating world. But this gives me that extra perspective that I feel makes me really respectful of all the challenges that they have to go through, and very understanding that sometimes when you don't get a reply or someone decides not to go out, it has nothing to do with you, and it has to do with them dealing with their own thing, whether it's just they're overwhelmed, etc. And it can really help you appreciate when someone does take the time to talk to you.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big takeaways I've picked up just from listening with you guys talk is it's not always, even from my experience on dating apps, when something doesn't go your way, the first reaction is you kind of put it on yourself maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then I feel like from listening to you guys, it's almost like at least from my perspective, I'm able to more think like, oh, well, who knows what they have going on. It could have nothing to do with me whatsoever. Maybe they have 80 matches messaging them. Maybe they have tons of work stuff going on. You just kind of have to show up as you and be okay with whatever happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just don't take it so personally, especially on the app side of things. Don't take it so personally of like, oh, they're not messaging me back, or I thought we had a good thing going. And I think we'll get into it too, but it's more of like that people right now are swiping for the next best thing. Unfortunately, it's like the unspoken thing. So you just have to recognize that that's a thing out there in the dating world and just be comfortable with who you are.
Yeah, I've definitely taken it personally when somebody didn't message me back. I'm like, man, we had like 30 messages in a row and now she didn't get back to me. Oh man, I'm the worst, I think everyone probably goes through that at some point in time.
Yeah, everybody does, and it really is important. Although sometimes it might be you, or not you specifically, but kind of the universal you. Sometimes it is how someone responds or how they message too. That can be overwhelming. It can be, but most of the time, it's what someone has going on in their own personal world.
Yeah. You can't take everything so personally. So, Sarah, you kind of started dipping your toe in the water a little bit, so I want to continue the conversation that way. With a lot of my friends, men and women, there's a lot of conversation about what it's like to date in our, digitally connected world, like with the apps and everything. And I don't think that there's really a ton of like great advice out there or like a playbook or anything like that I've ever felt good when I read it. I know there's like pickup stuff out there and different things like that, but that always felt kind of fake and phony to me.
It is.
It's always like top 10 list of what to say. It's always like those listicles of really cheesy advice. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, I've definitely seen those. And I'm like, this doesn't sound like anything I would ever say. They're going to be really disappointed when they actually meet me and they realize that I don't give a shit about any of this stuff. I would kind of like to hear what your guys' opinion is on how do you even begin to navigate the current dating scene in today's world?
Adam, you want to take this one?
I know it's a big question. It's like, let's start this off easy.
Here's how I look at it. It's no different than dating years ago. It's just the market is larger. It's the same thing with people saying, well, we didn't used to have all this bad news happening. No, it did. It was happening all around the world. We just didn't have instant access to read about it or find out about it. And that's exactly what dating is. Tinder is just a bar scene. It's just going to a bar or going to the grocery store and just seeing people. And really, it's all it boils down to people who say, oh, I hate the apps or I hate online dating. It really is just a matter of realizing that now you have a much larger market to look through, which means you don't have to stick with a shitty choice. You don't have to settle for somebody. Not that you should ever settle even back then, but you don't have to. You can actually take the time to find somebody that is a good match for you, not somebody who's just Mr. Right Now, that type of concept. And the big thing that I tell people to treat Tinder is really just like a bar. Like if you were at a bar and you saw somebody that you thought was attractive and you went up and you said hi and they looked at you and they said hi and then turned their back to you, that's essentially kind of like having a match with somebody and then they don't respond to your first message. That really is what that is. You move away. You don't push it. You don't keep talking to them. You like, all right, cool. And you move on. It's just, this is a bar that might have 1,000 people or 1,500 people in it. And that's really the way to approach it it's a numbers game. And if things aren't working out right then the timing isn't right. Sometimes timing is not going to work out.
And to that too, like with dating apps, and I was going to say it's easier to date now because you don't have to take all the effort to get dressed up, to go to a bar, to sit around and wait, and then hopefully find someone at the bar you find attractive. Now you can literally just sit in your underwear in your bed, post a couple photos on your Tinder, Bumble, whatever you're using, and start messaging people, and then decide if you want to spend the extra effort getting ready to meet that person.
It's funny you say effort too, by the way, because then you would think that people would put more effort into their profiles. So when you see the really low effort profiles, like the bad photos, no content, et cetera, that just shows you how little they care about the dating. And those are people you shouldn't bother with. If they can't even put the effort into creating a dating profile that's going to be attractive in any way, when that's all they have to do, then are they really going to put any effort into getting to know you?
And those are the people with like just one photo and no bio, or all of their photos are really grainy, or I don't know. It just really depends on what you're swiping.
All selfies. Yeah.
All selfies. Yeah.
Yeah. So Adam, there's something you said there that I want to touch on quick. And then I had a quick question for both of you. You kind of talked about how, back in the day, old school dating before the apps, how, you'd go into a bar and, find someone there, go up and talk to them. I almost think that what the online dating scene has done is before all of this, a lot of the dating was probably more based on proximity. Now it's almost, you can find other people that have shared values that don't go to the same bar or grocery store that you do. So it almost opens up your pool to more, how do I say this, to better matches possibly?
Oh, absolutely. I got married because when I went to law school, it was in a new town. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know where to go. So all I was doing was going to actual school. And in my class, everybody was basically engaged or married except for one person who I found attractive. That was my pool of people to choose from. And I chose one. I was kind of desperate. I felt like I was going to be alone forever because here's everybody already with somebody. And here I'm 21. I felt like I was a loser. And so we started dating. We got along great, but we started dating. A lot of it was because she was the only option. And now that wouldn't have happened because I ended up in a marriage where it wasn't a good marriage. I was there for 10 years and I wouldn't have been in that situation had I had multiple, more options at the time.
I feel like a lot of people face that at certain points in time, though, even with the online dating apps. I'm from the Midwest, so maybe it's a bit more conservative there, whereas, there's unspoken, maybe sometimes spoken pressure to, get involved with someone or advance your dating life to the next step. Mm-hmm. I still feel like that kind of exists.
Depending on the culture. I guess that would be like the cultural norm in that area, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm sure there's a lot more pressure on women than there is for men, especially where I'm from. I'm from Iowa, right in the center of the Midwest. The other question that I wanted to ask, you were talking about when you're on Tinder and Bumble and you're looking at these profiles and you kind of laid out some, I don't know if red flags is the right word, but like lack of effort. What is it so let's imagine someone's getting on there for the first time. What should they really be putting in for their profile, for like the effort in their profile? Should they be laying out like, here's my top 10 favorite hobbies and where I've traveled to and all that? Or how would you guys recommend that they, set that up?
Oh, I think for sure you should have 4 to 5 photos. So don't just post one. And for my profile anyways, mine tells a story. So I have like a selfie and then I also have 3 or 4 photos of me doing things that I like to do. So like one is me traveling, another one is me at the beach. So it's kind of telling a story instead of just like, this is what I look like. And then my bio portion, you definitely have to have a bio. I recommend that, but your bio portion for me anyways is an elevator pitch. So that's kind of what I suggest, is either something funny that you think or something that you like, something that will start the conversation. So when the two of you match, you have something to go off of, because nothing's worse than like you match and you're like, okay, well, what do I say to this person that has nothing in their bio? Or it just says, hi, I like tacos. Like just don't put tacos or wine. I don't know.
Then you just get a hey.
I agree with what you said. Currently, my profile talks about the podcast and says that I give people advice in their profile. So a lot of times I get questions from people I match with asking, so how can I improve my profile? And one thing I suggest to them every time is let your pictures tell a story. Like Sarah said, each picture represents something. I've got one of me on stage. I've got one, just like ones that show a little bit about your life. So people can say, oh, it looks like you like doing this, or it's a cool picture, not just 6 selfies or 6 pictures of you all making the same face or all out, at a bar. It's boring and it doesn't have any character. It has no depth of personality. And then your profile should just be a quick little thing that tells a little bit about yourself. Don't put so much effort into trying to say who you don't want. You can put a little bit of that. It's okay. But for the most part, just give someone something to talk about when they message you. That's really what it boils down to.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I use Bumble mostly. And so when someone messages me, the first thing I'm doing is looking at their photos or their profile to see like, okay, well, what do we have in common that I can talk about? And if there's nothing, if it's just, like you said, selfies and there's no profile, it's like, okay, well, hey, what's up? What do you like to do? What do you say?
And a full body picture is something you should always have in your profile, no matter what. Because if you're not confident enough to put a full body picture of yourself on your profile, then maybe you shouldn't be dating. It's one of those things that you want to be honest. Why would you want to trick somebody into a date? Because if you have to trick them into, showing up to a date, then that's not going to end well for anybody anyways. So just be honest. Just have a picture of yourself. Say, this is what I look like. There are going to be plenty of people that are going to find that attractive no matter what you look like. So just do that and stop trying to trick people.
I think the best dating advice, or I don't even know if it was dating advice, might have been advice in something else I was doing, but it was just be like, dude, just be yourself, like be your weird self, be into whatever you're into. And the people that are also into that, you're going to run into them, you're going to find them, maybe date them. Just do that. That way you're not like getting matched up with people that don't have any of the same interests or hobbies that you're really not a good match with anyways. Just be yourself and the right people will kind of show up at your door, I guess. I don't know if I like that analogy, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Right. Yeah. Definitely don't show up at people's doors.
Yeah. Just invite them on a date. Don't show up at their place.
So you're saying once you match, you shouldn't find out where they live and then show up?
That's a big red flag. Red flag.
Yeah, generally speaking, yes.
That's why I haven't been getting second dates. I understand. That makes sense. All right. As you're navigating your podcast, and Adam and Sarah, I'm sure you guys get reached out to all the time. I know, Sarah, I've seen some of your Instagram stories of some of the ridiculous things people put on their like Tinder profiles. Like,
oh, God.
The one that stood out to me was the guy said, I'm attracted to intelligence or something like that.
Congratulations.
If I don't put it, does that mean I'm not? I don't understand. Like
who isn't? It's like who's attracted to dumb people? Like, well, who puts that as a selling point? I don't understand that.
I don't know. I would like to meet the person that says that. I can't imagine.
Or people that put like must love music. I'm like, okay, who doesn't like music? Okay, cool.
You must really, really love music. I don't understand how that can be considered a filter. It's just more like you seem like you might be someone that's difficult to get along with. I'm not sure why, but what types of, mistakes do you see a lot of these people making when they're coming to you for advice and they're like, Sarah or Adam, I've jumped into this dating world. I'm trying to do the best I can. What types of mistakes do you typically see people making? Maybe you can share from both male and female point of view.
Ooh, well, I can tell you what I see females making a lot of mistakes on. And I think it's the wanting to be in a relationship before they're actually ready to be in a relationship or even just date anybody else. And that kind of goes back to Adam saying posting full body photos. And if you don't feel comfortable posting that, maybe you're not ready. I see friends and friends of friends that are like, I just want to be with someone. I'm getting close to like my mid-30s now. It's time. I just need to settle down and find somebody. And that desperation reeks, for one. And for two, like they're not comfortable enough to be alone. So they have to then seek approval from somebody else. And I just think that is a bad way to go about finding somebody or even just dating in general.
Yeah, I mean, trying to stuff the gaping maw of your loneliness with a person is not a good idea. That is never a viable solution, in my opinion. Really, people who want a relationship, they don't care with whom, it's a level of pathetic that means they're going to constantly go from relationship to relationship. Those are the people that are like posting on Facebook every 3 months that they're newly in love with somebody else because they're so desperate. That's definitely a mistake that I see all the time too. The biggest, I would say, error that I see is people letting insecurity get a hold of them. So, which boils down to everything, but like people who aren't just confident that they're worthwhile or that they're worth someone's time, and so they let that insecurity rot away at them. And I've been there. I've done that too, and it's never healthy. And you have to understand that you probably are good enough. I mean, there's a chance you're a shit person too. So, I mean, I'm not going to say everybody's good enough, but there's a possibility you're a good enough person, and you should treat yourself like you're a good enough person and not go with people who make you go crazy with insecurity or jealousy. And if you are finding yourself jealous all the time, you have to really assess why. I think it's a huge thing. And, sometimes people will just come to me or Sarah or us for advice and everything. And you just say, why don't you just talk to them about it? Why don't you just have a conversation?
Yeah.
That's the only solution that's going to work. There's no like magical wand you can wave and figure out what they're thinking unless you actually just have a conversation, an open, honest conversation with them.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Instead of actually talking to the person that you're having a miscommunication or having that challenge with, going to someone else and asking for advice, a lot of the times it can just be solved by bringing it up to the person that you're having the conflict with. I mean, I'm laughing because I'm like, yeah, it seemed to me it's very clear, but sometimes it's easier to talk to someone else about it than it is to actually sit down and have a difficult conversation with someone and actually figure out what's going on.
Sure.
And when you do that, it makes it even worse, because then now the situation's been blown up to this big proportion because you went to your friend to talk about this thing. And if you would have just gone to your partner, the person you're seeing, it might not have even been that big of a deal. And it'd be like, oh, yeah, problem solved. So.
Yeah, it's easy to blow things out of proportion or blow them up in your head when you're not actually speaking to the person that, that you're having that challenge or miscommunication with. Sarah, I had a follow-up question with one of the points that you made. You said one of the mistakes that you see is a lot of people they think that they have to have this, relationship or to fill that, the way you said that, Adam, the void of the gaping maw of like loneliness, or I don't remember what you said, but it was really funny.
Stuffing the gaping maw of your loneliness with a person.
Yes, yeah, that. And you said, that, they might not just be ready for a relationship. How is a person to know whether or not they're ready?
Ooh, shoot. See, I don't even know. I think I'm ready, but I think you have to be comfortable being alone. And not just like, oh, I've been hanging out with myself a couple of days, but really get to know yourself alone and be confident in who you are when you're just by yourself. I think that is step number one. But just like a sidebar from maybe the right steps to take before knowing when you're ready, I think too, there's a lot of social media pressure out there of what success is. So people see, oh, people are having kids and getting married and they look so happy and successful. So that must be the trajectory I need to take to be happy and successful. And that's my challenge to that is, how about you just be happy and find success by being alone and being comfortable with who you are first?
So over the last year, I've basically been, traveling alone with my bags and whatnot. And I cannot tell you that how much I agree with what you're saying, like being comfortable being alone. I went a little extreme. Maybe not everyone needs to do that.
You did the eat, pray, love thing. I think it's a good, it's just a way to go.
Somebody else asked me if that's what I was doing. I was like, I don't know. I just want to go see some shit and travel for a while by myself and see what happens. So I guess if that's eat, pray, love, then I guess I'm eat, praying, and loving my way around for the last 12 months. I don't know. I wish I could convince people that whenever they're having those feelings where they feel like they have to do something, just from my personal experience, it's so healthy just to take some time alone. Yeah, it sucks sometimes when you're like, man, I really wish that I had a person here or a relationship or I had X or Y. But once you make it through that, then you realize like, oh shit, like I did it once, I guess, and I'm okay. Maybe it's not that bad. And then I think that as you get to know yourself, maybe your standards go up a bit too. Maybe, I shouldn't say standards. Maybe you kind of are able to recognize who you're maybe a better fit for or who's a better fit for you.
It's what you'll tolerate, I think, too. If you're confident with yourself and you go on a date with a guy and he's kind of being wishy-washy and whatever, and you're feeling yourself 100%, you're like, I am not going to tolerate this. I deserve a lot better. And then you move on to the next person. Whereas if you didn't have that time to sit and really evaluate who you are alone, you might be like, oh, well, he's okay. I can look past that. Whereas like a more confident version of yourself would be like, no, I'm not even going to touch that. So.
Adam, did you have anything to chime in with that?
Yes. It's also the fact that I think when you're confident in who you are, I call it's kind of the Office Space phenomenon. And in that movie, the main character gets hypnotized to relax. And he relaxes so much, like at work, they keep promoting him because he just doesn't give a shit. Like he just walks in. I was like, I thought maybe I'd do this. And like, oh, wow, we like your attitude. They keep promoting him. And I feel like that's kind of the self-confidence level. And when I do career counseling, it's the same thing I suggest to people is like, if you can walk into a job interview and you don't care if you get the job, like you are okay with not getting it. You just want to go in for the experience of talking to these people, maybe networking. And that's the extent of what your expectations are. Then they'll read that confidence off of you and they'll feel like they'll actually be more interested in you. And I think when you get to the point in dating where you're like, I'm okay if I don't actually end up with this person. I'm okay if this date doesn't go well. I'm okay with whatever happens. Then you'll end up actually like attracting more people because they'll feel that confidence and they'll say, wow, like this person or the guy or girl doesn't care. Like they aren't trying to desperately get with somebody. And that actually has a sexiness to it.
I couldn't agree more with that. And I love the Office Space example because, what's one of my favorite movies. So just the fact that he doesn't give a shit and just keeps getting promoted. I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
Sarah, have you seen Office Space?
I have seen Office Space. Oh my God.
Okay.
Yes, I've seen Office Space.
We never know because Sarah's pop culture knowledge is almost zero.
Oh, okay.
It's like she's been living in a foreign country for the last 27 years.
Shut up.
Tennessee kind of is a foreign country, I think, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I can think back to, I'm sure both of you can relate, when you go into a date and you haven't even met the person yet, or you're just meeting the person and you already kind of give a shit about the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it reeks. It reeks.
Yeah. It never goes well. And then you're like, well, I might be speaking from experience when I was younger. And then afterwards you're like, damn. I invested way too much into that early on and I didn't feel good about it either afterwards. I'm like, that felt terrible.
Absolutely. There's a reason that I only go on dates within a 5-mile radius now and only go to Ale House. Like I just, I'm not going to put in too much concern into it now. If someone likes me, they like me, even if I don't take them out somewhere nice.
Take it or leave it, baby.
I'm old. I'm set in my ways. I'm not going to change too much. They have to be okay with it.
You're not that old, are you? You're in your early 40s, right?
Yeah, 42.
42. Ah, so you've a lot of time left.
Right.
He's just got all the wisdom, that's all.
That's right. That's right.
That's a good way to put it. So Adam, we're talking about some mistakes that, you see with insecurity, and this could be from a career perspective or dating. I'm sure it applies to both. What advice do you give to someone to work through that insecurity, or I'm trying to think of the non-self-helpy way to ask this. You know what I mean? Where I don't want to be like, how do you get confidence and believe in yourself? But it's like, how do you work through that insecurity and become more comfortable with yourself?
It can be hard. It definitely can be a challenge. I would say that for specific insecurities, like if there's a specific event that you're feeling insecure about, or a specific person, sometimes the best thing I suggest is writing it out. Like whether you're posting it somewhere where somebody, we have our Facebook group where people can post issues and everyone kind of talks through it, or even just putting it in black and white, getting it on paper so then you can read it again really helps. It's something about getting it out of your head into something more tangible allows you to see it as not being quite the big deal that you think it is. And another solution too is to sometimes imagine that your best friend was telling you the same thing that you're thinking. How would you respond to them? How would you tell them to react to that? And that can help a lot if you can put a perspective on it that it's not so personal to you. You're actually giving someone else advice. And if you can just take that advice, that can sometimes help. And then finally, I would say just get your dick wet. If sometimes the best thing for confidence is just getting laid, and don't be too discriminatory about with whom. Just get out there and get those hormones going. Get that, just empty yourself out a little bit and you might feel a little better.
Okay. I wasn't expecting that last part, but
that's how Adam rolls. I'm like, oh, Adam, I knew you were going to say something about sex.
Well, I mean, it's important. And I really think it does help. I mean, when I first got divorced, just had an affair and I thought I was going to be with the person that I had an affair with. So I was madly in love. And then she decided to go back to her husband. I was in a place where my confidence was kind of shattered because I didn't know what to do. I destroyed my entire life. And then I just went through a trampage and it built my confidence back up. I was like, oh, look, there are people who want to have sex with me, people who enjoy intimate time with me. I'm worth something, which is not the healthiest way to do it. So I'm not saying to do that exclusively, but it was a good one of multiple steps that helped quite a bit. Therapy helped, etc. But that was one good thing. Just know, oh, look, yes, there are people who want to jump on this and I'm okay with that.
I think that just knowing that, there are other people out there that actually do want to be with you probably is a huge help. Because when you're just sitting there and you're like, shit, no one is I'm not going to use this showing up at my door reference again because it was weird the first time, but no one's hitting me up in my DMs or anything like that to meet up or anything. I mean, and you're just sitting there. It probably doesn't really help. Knowing that you can actually go out and find someone, probably makes you feel a little bit more secure or helps you get down that path a bit.
You have a little bit more of a pep in your step too. Just I just got laid and on to, what else is out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like a jump start. And then you have to actually do real work. It's like the little boost you need. And then you actually have to be like, okay, now let me actually work on real confidence.
Sarah, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Oh, I was just going to say, if one night stands aren't for you, that's totally fine. They're not my thing. But one of the other things, I really love what Adam said about not only writing it down, but thinking about it. If a friend came to you with the same situation, how would you respond? And kind of to go back with that is building up a confidence. And it takes work every single day, just like with everything else we've mentioned, but slowly starting to not give a fuck about what other people think about you. I think when you're so stuck into oh, well, how are they going to think of me if I look this way or if I act this way or if I do these things, it will always bring you down. It will never help bring you up to the person that you want to be. So slowly not caring what people think about you will definitely help.
Do you have any advice or things that you've done to help you? Because whenever I hear you talk on the podcast or see your Instagram stories, anything like that, I'm like, man, Sarah does not give a fuck at all.
Oh man. Well, one crazy thing that really did spike my confidence was leaving my hometown. Maybe it's not right for everybody, but me leaving Orlando and moving to Nashville, and I'm like, fuck, nobody knows me here. I can just be my true self. I can say crazy things and I don't really care what anyone thinks about it anymore. And that has definitely been a jump start for me with confidence. But I think too, I kind of like just doing my own thing anyways. And it's kind of funny to me when people hate. It's taken a process, like I said, of not caring what people think about you. But after I've been kicked down so many times, I'm like, I really don't care. So it's been a slow, gradual process of getting a lot of hate from the start and then building that up, moving to a new city. And then just I'm going to be me. I'm confident. I'm in my mid-20s. Let's do the damn thing.
You're in your late 20s now, by the way. Just going to say that.
Oh, 27 still mid. I feel like is late 20s, okay? Damn it.
Damn.
Rude.
That's cold.
I know.
Adam, I also kind of feel like you have the same attitude. I feel like yours is a more chill, like don't give a fuck. But I mean, you kind of talked about it a little bit. You went out and, you got therapy, you got laid. Sounds like you've really kind of said like, well, this is my comfort zone. We have to get to this point until I'm willing to invest more. What advice do you have people to give less of a shit or to just be more comfortable in their own skin?
Well, I think sometimes changing your circle can help as well. Cleansing yourself of toxic friends and toxic friendships really can help, because if you've got people in your life that are supposedly friends but are constantly putting you down or turning on you as soon as they have a second, then it's one of those weird situations where you think they're friends but they're not. They're actually hurting you quite a bit. And I think getting rid of those can help you realize, oh, now that I have this person, I have actual positive reinforcement in my life. I have people who are supporters and actual like they're great friends. That's what a real friend is, and that can help quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
But in the end, I think it's important to realize that everybody fucks up, everybody's done shit, everybody's has sad days, everybody has bad days, and everybody has good days. And it's just some people just are better about only posting the good days, so you might think that their life is better than it is. And you have to be okay with the fact that everybody's going to have things that they necessarily don't want out there. And if you are really worried about that, if you're really worried about what is everybody going to think, everybody's got something like that. And the only people who are going to judge you and be shitty about it are people who probably have something much worse that they've done, or something much worse about, like they dated somebody that they're ashamed of or something, and that they are channeling that and reflecting it back on you.
I had lived in Iowa my entire life, so I just decided to go completely extreme and just like sell all my stuff and leave. And I found that actually I went back for Christmas, right? So I went and saw some old friends and some acquaintances and stuff. And I was only there for a short period of time. So I was like, I have to hang out with my family and my nieces, of course. And then I found myself like hanging out with some of these people. And I was like, wait, I'm not enjoying this. Like there's people waiting for me are really important that I want to spend time with. And being able to recognize that like my values didn't line up with theirs anymore, or mine had changed, or, maybe it was the whole proximity thing we discussed earlier. I think being able to take a look at relationships like that and see sometimes it's really hard to see that you're not, just lining up, because, you've been friends for a long time. I'm sure you hear this in the dating world. We've been together forever. We've been together for so long. And then how do you get people to see that though? Because I don't think I would have ever seen it if I just would have stayed. But from traveling, meeting all kinds of interesting people, finding a lot of people that have shared values and interests with me, and then coming home and seeing that huge divide, it was really shocking to me. I just don't know how I would have seen that if I hadn't removed myself from it. So I'm wondering, how do you get people to see that without, taking them and pulling them out of that environment?
I think if you start a new hobby, maybe it doesn't have to be the extreme of going to another country and selling all of your stuff, but if you start a new hobby and you are introduced to a new circle of people, that might open up your horizon of like, the other people back in my old circle kind of bring me down, or my partner, like it's okay to grow. It's okay to change. You should be doing that in your life. So if those are things that you're noticing, then that's when you have to, ultimately you'll find that out, and then you'll come to the decision of maybe it's time to cut ties. But I think just taking baby steps with it of, I want to sign up for this, I don't know, I always go with pottery, this pottery making class, or I don't know, this adult rec league, and start playing kickball with a bunch of other people in my community. Those will be like slowly ways to open your eyes to the circles of people you surround yourself now, and if they're the right people for you.
I would say that education is important too, that the more or the less educated somebody is, the less likely they are to break out of that cycle, because the more educated you are, the more exposure you have to a lot of things that you never knew and you never thought about. And then the less educated you are, you tend to just, whatever's in your immediate vicinity is all that you know, and you don't know anything further. So it can be hard. But your original question was like, how can you, get somebody to kind of get out of that? And you can't. They have to want to do it themselves. Like there's really nothing that you can do it yourself, but if you can't help somebody else get out of this, it's something where they actually have to want to change or be better or improve their life. And that's going to be, completely dependent on their own inner fortitude.
Yeah, I wasn't intending that to instruct someone on how to fix their life or anything like that. I guess I was just thinking back in the past where like what could have possibly happened in my life or something, what could have been said to me where I would have had like a wake up call and been like, oh shit, like this doesn't line up with who I am as a person or what my values are. This is like relationship that's been based on, maybe who I was before or something like that.
Sometimes a really bad thing has to happen for you to have a wake-up call too, instead of taking the initiative to try something new on your own. You have to like hit a really deep rock bottom and you're like, I will not accept this anymore. Something has to change. And that's the momentum you get to move on to something better.
Mm-hmm. We don't grow from happy moments in our lives. The only time you grow as a person is how you deal with bad things that happen in your life.
Yeah, I think back to some of the most trying moments or stressful moments. It was when you when I made a choice of, I'm not doing this again, right? Like, this is not happening again. I don't know what I have to do, but I'm going to figure it out and fix it and make sure it doesn't happen another time or take a different path. Last thing I wanted to cover with you guys was like ownership in relationships, or just like taking ownership or responsibility of yourself in relationships. I have some friends that'll reach out for, dating advice and relationship advice. And whenever I hear the whole like, well, all women are like this, or, it's all her fault, or it's all his fault, all men are like that, I'm just like, okay, maybe that's part of a bigger problem. So I kind of want to hear your guys' opinion on, Sarah, you've said that you've heard this before where guys say that type of stuff, all women are crazy, or, whatever the saying is.
Which is a red flag, a huge red flag,
right.
Red flag city.
Yes. I mean, let's talk about like ownership in relationships though, because I feel like that's a big issue that gets kind of glossed over all the time. I'm sure I've been guilty of it in the past, but it's, just really taking responsibility for what you do. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that instead of really trying to project or control what the other person's feeling or doing.
Yeah. Well, to kind of roundabout answer that, I have two new mottos, and I think this is just kind of from being hurt, from growing, from learning through all of the dating that I've been doing for the past 2 years. Two mottos. It's either a fuck yes or it's a fuck no. So if you are fuck yes about this person, then continue it, and if you're like, then it's a fuck no. Then you need to move on. If that's going to be a deal breaker for you, move on. And the other one is, I am no one's second choice. So that puts it back on you. If you're feeling like, oh, well, he's talking to somebody else, or it just doesn't seem like he's as committal as I like him to be, or whatever the case may be, you're no one's second choice. Someone should always be wanting to choose you because you are great. So for me, by going by those two things, whether that's with friendships or relationships, it weeds out a lot of the bullshit of me not having to deal with a lot of people. I deal with the people that really want to hang out with me and care about me. And I don't know, that's my one tool.
I would say maybe that as far as like the personal responsibility, it's hard because once again, somebody has to want to change. They have to want to see someone else as the problem. And it can be hard. It can be very difficult for somebody to ever reach that point because they're a perpetual victim. Like they need to hit rock bottom and try to grow as a result of it before they're ever going to be a better person. But if you're somebody who is trying to be a better person and you're seeing a situation and you're trying to figure out, well, like, is this something that I'm doing? Am I causing this? Then, therapy is a good way to do it. It is something, but maybe you start looking for commonalities. You look at, well, every time I've done this happens, and that might help as well.
Yeah, and I liked what you said with the fuck yes and fuck no, Sarah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, because even if it's like, that would have been pretty good if it would have worked out. You save yourself a lot of stress if you're just like, is this a fuck yes for both of us?
Right.
Then we're in.
In our group, we'll have people sometimes who are like, well, how do you know if you have chemistry? Sarah and I both say that, by the end of the first date, you should have an idea if there's chemistry. And if you're really not sure, like if you're just like, oh, it was fun, and I guess I'll go out again, then you probably shouldn't, because that's not a fuck yes. That's a eh. And do you really want to start a whole relationship based on and then hope that chemistry builds and that your attraction grows? Because what's going to happen is that attraction is also going to fade later on too.
If you're asking, well, how do you know if you're having to ask if there's chemistry or not, then the answer is no. Like, I think that the answer is very clearly no, but I just feel like you just know. If it's going like shit, you definitely know that as well. You're like, well, never going to see this person again.
Right.
This is a hell no.
Well, that's an easy one. If it doesn't go well, it's harder when it goes mediocre, because it's a lot harder to make the choice to be like, should I just walk away from this? And that's when it comes down to being okay being alone.
Yep.
Means that you're also going to be okay with saying, oh, I don't want to do this because this person doesn't inspire like passion with me. They should inspire a lukewarm, feeling in the cockles of my heart or something. That's not good enough.
The cockles of my heart. I've never heard that before. So Adam, I'm trying to remember what point you made after Sarah's fuck yes and fuck no. I wanted to bring it back to that. Who knows? Yeah.
So personal responsibility. Yeah, we're talking. So somebody that maybe see if they have any commonalities, see if maybe they are the cause of it, and try to really assess what they're doing.
Yeah. Do you guys see that those types of things get brought up a lot in your group, or just when people approach you for advice, where they're like, I don't know, it's like the victim mentality?
Oh, there's a handful of people that are like, oh, this dating arena is so terrible. Why me? And I'm like, everybody else is in it too. So take a good look at what you're doing. Like nothing's happening to you. Like you're playing a role in this as well.
Yeah. What advice do you guys give to those people in your groups or your circles that do that? Is it like what you said? Just tell them to take a look at how they're showing up?
It's hard because at first you want to try to help them, but anyone who plays a perpetual victim is consistently going to keep it, no matter what it is, it's going to be something that they make about themselves or it makes about how they're suffering. And so at some point you stop replying. And those are people that you just like, you can't help sometimes. There are people that you have to be like, listen, you need to suck it up. Like you need to stop being this way. You're just pushing everybody else away and that's it. And they were like, people will be like, what are you doing? Like they essentially bombard them saying you're being an idiot and they never get the point. And so it's hard. But I've had friends that I had to stop talking to just because they were constantly, everything was always woe is me. It's draining. My own emotional strength is more important than building somebody else's. And so at the point that it becomes more emotionally exhausting for me, I have to step away.
Yeah, I think that comes back to Sarah's policy on like the fuck yes or no thing. Like, I think it's okay. People go through issues and it's okay to support them. But when it becomes a character trait, and you notice it's really wearing you out. For me personally, I know if that continually happens, like I feel exhausted after the conversation. I'm like, man, I don't enjoy this feeling. So we either need to cut these conversations back or get your shit together. So I have 2 quick questions, then we can wrap this up. We've talked a lot about the surface level and a lot of the different normal dating questions or things that pop up. For those people who are out there trying to, find, oh man, I almost said the one, but I felt like I was going to get, yeah, that's what I was.
Don't you dare.
Yeah.
Adam will start a rant and you'll be really sorry.
I know. I almost said it and then I'm like, I know better. So maybe that's one of the last things. So you can rant quick on people out there looking for the one, and then we'll wrap it up with just some last words of advice from you guys.
Oh man, I'm going to say there is no the one, and then I'm going to pass it off to Adam because I already know what his rant is and it's my favorite.
I don't even know what I'm going to rant about. I mean,
no, you touch on it every couple of episodes of like, stop limiting yourself to finding the one.
Right,
There's people in your life. You can be open to the possibility of other people and okay.
Look at she's heard it so many times. No, it's absolutely just like fucking idiotic to think that there's 8 billion people in the world and you think that there's one person for you. I mean, there's probably one person out there who just looks like you and is your doppelganger as well. There might even be hundreds of those. Like it's so weird to me. The population is huge. There are plenty of people that are going to share interests and share, like make you smile and maybe make you smile in different ways when you have good sex with, maybe in different ways as well. There's so many ways that you can share happiness with somebody that to limit yourself by saying, oh, I need to find the one, it really is stupid. It drives me crazy when people say it's like saying partner in crime. It's like, no, you're looking for somebody to have a life with. And if you are a whole person, you can have a life with a lot of other whole people and you're going to have a lot of things in common. You're going to have a lot of happy moments. You're going to have a lot of passion. You can have passion with multiple people at different times, sometimes at the same time. And I think that people who are so stuck on that are the same type of people who are so desperate to get into a relationship that they're willing to get into one with anyone because anyone is the one. Anyone, what the one means to them is the one person who's willing to put up with my pathetic bullshit and get in a relationship with me. And then, and 3 months later, oh, this is the other one. And those are people who really just need to never date until they can until they can love themselves. They shouldn't be dating. They should be socializing. They shouldn't be, in public. They should just be working on themselves until they can look at themselves in the mirror and love themselves. Nobody else is going to love them. And that's like it's a hard lesson, but they should fucking hear it.
I'm a clap for that. Yes.
I love it. Very specific people who I've heard them say, I'm just trying to find the one. I'm like, dude, that's a lot of pressure to put on somebody you don't even know yet. Like you go into that first date thinking like, oh, this could be it. This could be the one. Man, I would be having like a mild anxiety attack. I'd be, all right, I need to drink first. And, you wouldn't even be able to be yourself either. So it kind of shoot yourself in the foot before you even get started.
I think that's why there's so much anxiety around dating because people think of it that way. Instead of, oh, I'm meeting up with just some person that I've had a slight connection with on an app and we're just going to have a fun time and see what happens, That reduces your anxiety right there instead of, this could be my last first date ever. Oh my God.
Holy shit. Oh, man.
I'm sure people say that before a date of like, this could be the last first date I ever go on, which is disgusting to me. But yeah.
The only way I applaud that is that means that they never go on another date with anybody. Like they just stop dating.
Right.
All right. So I've really enjoyed the conversation with you guys so far. I mean, I've learned a lot from this conversation and you've just reaffirmed that I enjoy listening to you guys chat about dating.
Well, thanks.
No problem. To wrap things up, if each of you just could give like a few sentences or something of advice for people out there in the dating world, not looking for the one, but just maybe trying to find someone that's also a whole person to spend some time with, what advice would that be?
We say it on every single episode of being honest and open and transparent in relationships. And I also think that applies to being honest and open with yourself and getting to know yourself too. And that's my advice.
And I would say that in addition to obviously the honesty, transparency, don't be afraid to talk about things that might be hard because, you know, when you share more of yourself with someone, they respond in kind, but also treat people like you would want to be treated. Treat them, you know, like you would want to be, respect them like you'd want to be respected, and act like you would want people to act around you. Like, don't be shitty. Don't send dick pics. Don't be creepy. Don't be weird. You know, just
don't show up at their house.
Right, don't show up at their house.
Come
just,
on.
Yeah, just be be your genuine self. And if your genuine self is a creepy weirdo who sends dick pics, well, then just lock yourself in your room. But like, just treat others like you would want to be treated. That and honesty will, you know, get you a far away in any type of relationship with anyone, whether friendship or sexual.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you on that, Adam. I think if people actually took the time to think about how they're treating other people, if it's the same way that they would want to be treated in reverse, they probably would have a lot less stress and maybe some more success in their dating lives. So,
what would your mother think about those dick pics you're sending? All I'm going to say.
I'm going to use that as the promo clip for this episode.
Please do.
All right. You guys shared a ton of advice, and I know I talked about checking out the show, but if anybody wants to maybe join your Facebook group or check out the show, follow you on Instagram, anything like that, where would they do so?
Well, you can first visit datingkindasucks.com for all of our recent episodes. We have like a Your Profile Kinda Sucks feature, so you can submit your profile there. You can email us at datingkindasuckspodcast@gmail.com. And then Adam always goes on about our group, facebook.com/group/DKS podcast. We also have our own personal Twitter accounts, our own personal Instagram accounts, and then our Dating Kinda Sucks Instagram at Dating Kinda Sucks podcast. I believe that's the right one.
Yes, that's the podcast. And of
Anything?
course, we're available on all podcast apps and Stitcher and Spotify and places like that.
We'll throw the links down into the show notes, so if you guys want to check them out, which I highly recommend if you are navigating the dating or relationship waters currently. So yeah, that's a wrap for this show, and really appreciate you guys stopping by.